The board was established pursuant to Section 519.13 of the Ohio Revised Code by the Anderson Township trustees to provide administrative relief to any person or entity adversely affected by the Anderson Township zoning resolution. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Johnson?
Present.
Mr. Nye?
Here.
Mr. Cyan?
Here.
Mr. Halpin?
Present.
Mr. Shekels?
Here. Thank you for coming to this meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals. Please be aware that this meeting is audio and videotaped and may be carried live on television. First, I'll outline our procedures. A summary of the appeal is presented by the staff. Then the appellant will present its case. The board members may then ask questions of the appellant. After that, all persons supporting the appeal will be permitted to testify, one at a time, after being recognized by the chairman. When these persons submitting the appeal are finished, those opposed to the appeal will be permitted to testify and/or ask questions of the board after being recognized by the chairman. All persons wishing to testify, whether for or against an appeal, must only do so after being sworn in. When testifying, each person must come forward to the podium after being recognized, speak into the microphone, and state their name, address, and any affiliation to the case. All persons testifying will be limited to 4 minutes unless a board member requests additional time. All testimony is given to the board only. No comments or questions are to be directed to the appellant or anyone else in the audience. The board will only hear new, non-repetitive evidence or questions. Should someone wish to show support of previous testimony, they may do so by following the testimony procedures and stating their support of previous testimony. Now, will all persons who will give testimony this evening please stand, raise your right hand, and swear or affirm. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? See? Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
Yes, there's one change to the agenda, and that is the journalization of case 25.
That was put out in the...
It was.
That was put out in the... So there's
On
nothing
October
beyond
4th.
that, right?
No.
Okay. Hearing none, I move the agenda is approved by unanimous consent.
Approved.
Are there any further changes to the minutes from the previous meeting? Anyone on the board have changes to the previous meeting?
Yes, so there's 2 different minutes. We have the August and then September.
September, right.
With September in particular, Mr. Nye brought to our attention a couple of errors.
Okay.
We have the revised version of the minutes.
What were they? Were they substantive or?
There was one substantive one that I would call probably not substantive. One indicated that I seconded a motion that I think I did not.
You did not. It was actually Mr. Cyan, so
Yeah.
we did correct that.
I had abstained because it was referring back to when I wasn't there in August. But the other one, I forget which case number now, but the straw poll indicated the minutes was approval of a variance that I think we voted to deny. Is that right?
And yes, but that one, there is verbiage in there that the board discussed to deny a 12-foot by 16-foot accessory structure variance A. And then when it says vote variance A, it's referring to that it's a denial.
Okay. So we did in fact deny variance
Correct.
A on the one on, was it Hackley or?
Yes.
Or, so it is correct and I was wrong, as it turns out.
Yes.
Okay.
So do you want a hard copy or are you good with that?
And I have a hard copy if we
You've got a
need
hard
it.
copy
Yes.
there? You're
Paul,
good?
you're the chair, you can read it.
Well, no, I'll be glad to stay here all night and read. If there are no further changes, I move the minutes are approved as amended by unanimous consent. Please read the staff summary for case number 25-20202.
First case this evening is applicant David and Amanda Scheller, property owners of 8506 Forest Road, Book 500, page 112, parcel 051, zoned A2 residence. Excuse me. The request is a conditional use and variance request to allow a short-term rental. Short-term rentals are conditional use in a single-family zoning district per Article 5.4I-15 of the Anderson Township zoning resolution. The definition of a short-term rentals is as follows: the rental of a primary residence of or portion thereof for a period of less than 30 nights, for which the guest compensates a hosting platform, owner, or leasee of the unit. The proposed development is an applicant is proposing to operate a short-term rental in an existing single-family residence. The applicant has not proposed any changes to the exterior of the property. History: the current property owner purchased a property of March of 2022. In April 2020, the Anderson Township Board of Trustees adopted text amendments to the zoning resolution, which made short-term rentals a conditional use in single-family residence zoning districts. And as you see, here's a property map of the property in question. Here's an aerial of the property. A topography map of the property. It's a relatively flat parcel. Here's a photo of the front of the residence. This is of, if you're looking at the house from the street on the left side of the house, this is viewing the side property. And this is further down the side property viewing the rear yard. This would be, if you're looking at the house, once again, on the right side of the property, looking at the side yard. To authorize by the grant of a special zoning certificate after a public hearing, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall make a finding that the proposed conditional use is appropriate in the location proposed. The findings shall be based upon the general considerations set forth in Article 2.12D8, as well as the designated specific criteria for specific uses contained in Article 5.4I-15. Also, as general considerations would be in Article 2.12D8. The spirit and intent, the proposed use and development would comply with the spirit and intent of the zoning resolution and with district purposes by meeting the conditional use standards. No adverse effect. The proposed short-term rental would not have an adverse effect upon adjacent property or the public health, safety, and general welfare. The applicant has indicated that the property has multiple exterior motion-triggered cameras watching over the entire property. The applicants live next door to the property and can monitor it. The proposed short-term rental will respect natural, scenic, and historic features of significant public interest. The applicant has not changed the exterior of the existing family residence. The proposed short-term rental is consistent with the Anderson Township zoning resolution as a short-term rental is compliant with the height and setback requirements of the property. The conditional use is in accordance with the township's comprehensive plan. The project is consistent with the following goal and initiative in the housing chapter in the 2022 comprehensive plan, which states, Anderson Township is home to diverse housing options to meet changing demographics and market demands. Encourage the development and redevelopment of a variety of housing styles and densities in appropriate areas of the township. This property is designated for a single-family residential use on the future land use map. Staff feels as though the proposed short-term rental is consistent with this classification. Specific criteria in Article 5.4I-15. Parking shall not be permitted in the area as defined in the front yard setback of the existing zone, which is compliant. The vehicular use area shall be located and designed so as to minimize impact on the neighborhood, which is compliant. Measures shall be taken to minimize the impact of potential nuisances such as noise, odor, vibration, and dust on adjacent properties. Compliant. The applicant has established quiet hours, no parties or events, and no smoking or drugs. There is an electronic locking system and cameras on site. Applicants live at the residence directly west of the property and will be notified of any potential nuisances. No exterior alterations of existing structure shall be made that depart from the residential character of the building. All new structures shall be compatible in residential design with the surrounding neighborhood. However, any improvement required by code or necessitated by licensing requirements shall not be deemed incompatible, which is compliant. No proposed changes to the existing structure other than fresh paint when needed. All exterior lighting shall be directed away from adjacent residential properties, compliant. No changes to the lighting is proposed. The applicant shall provide a plan indicating the manner in which the facility will maintain contact with neighborhood residents, along with a structured procedure whereby residents' grievances may be filed with the township and resolved by the facility. Compliant. Contact information has been distributed to surrounding neighbors and property owners who live next door. Meals shall be served only to guests or residents of the facility and not to the general public. Compliant. No meals will be served. An emergency response plan shall be submitted detailing safety measures and response procedures. Compliant. An emergency plan is provided with emergency information. Properties are equipped with fire extinguisher, smoke detectors, and carbon monoxide detector. And these are standards to be considered. Parking shall not be permitted in the area defined as a front yard setback of the existing zone district. The vehicular use shall be located in design so as to minimize impact on the neighborhood. Measures shall be taken to minimize the impact of potential nuisances such as noise, odor, vibration, and dust on adjacent properties. No exterior alterations of an existing structure shall be made that depart from the residential character of the building. All new structures shall be compliant in residential design with the surrounding neighborhood. However, any improvement required by the code or necessitated by licensing requirements shall not be deemed incompatible. More standards to be considered. All exterior lighting shall be directed away from adjacent residential properties. The applicant shall provide a plan indicating the manner in which the facility will maintain contact with neighborhood residents, along with a structured procedure whereby residents' grievances may be filed with the township and resolved by the facility. Meals shall be served only to guests or residents of this facility and not to the general public. An emergency response plan shall be submitted detailing safety measures and response procedures. Corey?
Does the staff have any questions for the board? Paul?
I do have a question. There's noted in the history, there's a complaint filed. Are you able to share the details of that complaint?
I don't believe there has been a complaint.
It says in the, it said there was.
There is. I'm looking it up in our system currently.
Okay.
For the further detail.
Yo. Let's take your time, we'll wait. Any other,
Unless the complainant is here, in which case we could just answer them.
any other questions from the board while we're waiting for answer? No.
So the complaint happened before Chris and Lauren joined our department, but I'd be happy to talk about it. We did receive a complaint regarding an Airbnb being on this property. It was an anonymous complaint, and we don't know their proximity, but we're a complaint-based system. So if we receive a complaint, we have to look into it, and we were able to find the property on Airbnb's website.
Okay, so the complaint was just the fact that they were running an Airbnb, it wasn't
Correct.
noise,
It was
parties,
not,
or anything
no,
else?
it was not noise related. It was just that there was an
Okay.
Airbnb.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the board? Okay, will the appellant or the appellant's representative come to the podium, speak your name, address, and any affiliation, and present your appeal?
Okay, my name is Amanda Scheller. My address is 8492 Forest Road, and I am the property owner of 8506 as well as 8492 Forest Road. Hello, everyone. My name is Amanda Scheller, and my husband, David, and I are here to request the approval of 8506 Forest Road for the conditional use as a short-term rental. My husband and I live at 8492 Forest Road, which is directly next door to 8506 Forest Road, which you obviously already heard. We have lived at 8492 for 16 years, and in the March of this year, we purchased 8506. Since moving into our home, we have always dreamed to purchase 8506 so that one day it could serve as an accessible one-story home for our parents. David and I both grew up here in Anderson Township, and our parents still all reside in the area. All of our siblings have moved all over the country, and we are the only ones that are still here. With all of us getting a little bit older, including our parents, if they do need additional care, we are the ones that are going to be responsible for taking care of them. Our parents are currently in good physical and mental health, and so in the meantime, we needed to find a solution for the property. And so with this reason, we decided to move forward with the short-term renting. This is especially because our siblings do live out of town, and we already have limited space in our home, and we wanted 8506 to serve as a place for our family to come and stay whenever they come back to Cincinnati to visit, but then also make an adjustment in case there is something that does occur where we do have to take in our parents, and we can make that adjustment quickly. We understand what people think whenever they hear about an Airbnb and VRBO popping up next door. They assume that it's going to turn into a loud party house, and that's absolutely not what David or I want, especially since we live right next door. We have set up our contract and our reservations to limit any negative impacts to the neighborhood. Some examples, but not limited to, we require a government ID to be issued to the person that is reserving the property for any reservation that's made. We have a 2-night minimum, and we have it priced to deter anyone that's really just coming into town to look for a party, to throw a party. Our contract also includes, which was listed, we have established quiet hours, no smoking or drug use on the property. Our renters must be 25 years or older to rent the home. We have a limit to 4 cars in the driveway, and they're only allowed to be in the driveway. No parties or events, and if there is a party or event that will happen, it will result in immediate eviction. And no additional guests are allowed on the property unless they notify us first. All of these items are listed on the rental sites within the contract, and then anything, they have to agree to our contract in order to move forward with the reservation. There is an electronic locking system as listed, or as we reviewed, to enter the home, and there are multiple cameras that do send us notifications when detecting motion outside of the property, but then it also has DVR recall on these cameras. With our family living directly next door, if noise, odor, vibrations, dust occur within the view of us or the cameras, we will obviously be the first to know, and we will be the first to step in to mitigate a nuisance. Also, the surrounding neighbors all have our cell phone numbers and know that they can reach us at any time. We have a 9 and 12-year-old that live in our home, and with the short-term rental being next door, we not only don't want guests to throw parties, but we also want to make sure that our children are safe, and also their friends that live around the area. We have decorated and marketed the home as a family-friendly home. We even provide things that make it more appealing to families, such as high chairs, pack and plays, toddler tables, and bumpers on corners, and even a kids' playhouse. So all kinds of different things that make it more family-friendly. And our marketing direction on 8506 has been working, and some of the examples of some people that have stayed. We haven't had many, but a mom and her 2 daughters have come to visit family. A nurse from Indiana and her family who had to cancel a big trip to Florida because of a nursing shift change, but instead rerouted their vacation to Cincinnati for a long weekend. We also had an Anderson High School graduate who now lives in Chicago, and she was able to bring her husband and one-year-old daughter to stay in the home, and she was able to show them the Anderson area and celebrate her sister's engagement. A new grandmother who got to come back and visit her daughter and a new grandbaby. A couple who came to Cincinnati to visit their children, grandchildren, and even celebrate one of their birthdays. And a couple who grew up in Anderson but now lives in Arizona, and they brought their children and one-year-old grandchild to Cincinnati for a family wedding. This has been a wonderful way for people and families to come back to Anderson to visit family, to celebrate family, and the things that they have going on in their life, or to just break away from a different city. We request that you do approve 8506 Forest Road for the conditional use as a short-term rental, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
One of the things that, excuse me, when we approve conditional uses or variances, they run with the property, not with the owner. So if we approve this and you sold it tomorrow, next year, next decade, it's approved. I think we have some authority to place some conditions on that, such as you can use the short-term rentals for so long as you live next door. Is that a condition that you're open to in this sort of situation? Your husband's back there is nodding. I think.
Can I say the area, just in case we move
you tell
away
me.
from next door? But I mean, our plan is to stay in literally next door forever, but yet we don't plan to leave Cincinnati. So could it be, so yes, but could it be something like the greater Cincinnati area, and then us be able to set up some additional things to make sure to keep the property in a situation where we could step in? I mean, we're not going anywhere far.
Yeah.
But it could be maybe down the street, and
I understand. I think I appreciate what you're saying. We struggle with making sure we protect the neighborhood adequately.
absolutely, I appreciate that. I live here, so.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Just to clarify, you are self-managing this, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to speak in support of the appeal? Please come to the podium, give us your name, address, and state your relationship to the.
Okay. My name is Sherry Snyder. My husband and I are the homeowners directly across the street from the Schellers at 8489 Forest Road. We also own the property that will be directly across from the proposed rental, 8507. We own that property, and a family member of ours lives there. So I'm basically just here to briefly say that I completely support the Schellers in their short-term rental proposal. They are amazing neighbors. They take wonderful care of their property. I have no concerns that they will do anything differently at 8506, and I feel confident that if there were ever any issues to arise, that they would take care of them quickly. We also happen to live in the area but have no relatives that live here. So we have relatives in Arizona and South Carolina. And when they come in, we would actually love to have the option to have them stay at the house across the street and rent from the Schellers. So for us, it's a win-win, and I would hope that you will support their proposal.
Thank you. Are there any
Thank you.
questions from the board? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in support of the appeal? Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the appeal? Okay. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the appeal? Hearing none. We were about to go into executive session, and I just wanted to brief the public on this. We have the option of going into another room and consulting with each other, but as a board, we choose not to on 99.9% of the cases. So you'll be hearing our internal discussion, but we can't communicate with you. You can't communicate with us. Just pretend we're sitting in that room and you're watching us on the big screen. Okay. Hearing no further comments, if there's no objection to the board, do we have a motion to close the public hearing on this case?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Will you please call the roll?
Mr. Johnson? Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Cyan?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye. Is there anyone who would like to start the discussion, or maybe we should break Brian in early here?
I could say that, it seems like it currently meets the township conditions, consistent with the township plans, no opposition, they live next door, so I'm in support.
Jeff?
We've had a few of these this year, and these seem so simple, but they can be a little challenging. We got this one here today. There's one maybe 2 months ago. There's a lot of discussion about, and that we'll talk about again later tonight. There's one maybe 4 or 5 months ago that also generated a lot of discussion and debate. I'm pleased that we haven't heard any evidence from other people opposed to it here. I know if Steve were here, he'd be very opinionated about it. I'm trying to think of all the arguments that aren't raised too, and what might set this apart from some of the other ones, if anything. The standards, the first general consideration is whether it's consistent with the spirit and intent of the zoning resolution and with district purposes. I think the answer to that is yes. What we've heard is there are a lot of conditions in place that are intended to make this a short-term rental, but for single-family purposes, and this is a single-family district. So that's a yes. The second thing is there should be no adverse effect upon adjacent property or public health, safety, or general welfare, the effect of the neighborhood, essentially. This tends to be the controversial issue. People say it's going to change the neighborhood. We've heard nothing from any neighbors here today that suggests that's the case. In fact, the only neighbor we've heard from says this sounds great. The one we had a couple months ago was at the end of a cul-de-sac on a little street. This is kind of a different neighborhood. And it seems to me that some of the issues that were raised in that case, every case has to stand on its own, obviously, but some of the issues that were raised in that case are not at issue here just because it's a little bit of a different area. It's a bigger lot, it's a different kind of street. So I think with the conditions we've heard about in this application, I'm comfortable saying that as long as those conditions remain in place, there's probably not going to be an adverse effect on the neighborhood. No effect on public services. It is consistent with adopted township plans, and all the additional specific criteria, I think, are met. The only thing I would say is that if we do grant this, I think we should include as conditions the protective measures, let's say, that were included within the application. There are electronic locks, there's sound monitors, those DVR, motion camera lights, whatever it was.
Those are all a condition of them meeting the standard. They have to have those to meet the standard.
They have to have, there's certain minimum standards.
Yeah,
It sounds
right.
like they've exceeded the standards.
Right.
And I think if we hold them to what they've already said they're going to do, then we can be confident that this is not going to have an adverse effect on the neighborhood. One of the things that we talked about with the other two cases is, local, if not ownership, then management. And so while I appreciate they live next door now and that they don't intend to go anywhere, I think we should include as a condition that if they don't live local, they should have a local manager for the property.
I don't agree personally, it's just you and me discussing this, that we can impose that condition saying you can't move to Cleveland or Detroit or wherever. And I would have to get the township's attorney to rule on that before I would take any action on that.
I'm not suggesting we can't let them move. I'm saying if they move, they need to have
Then
someone
what, they
local.
vacate this?
Well, yeah, I mean, if they don't have someone local, then they're
but-
not compliant with the condition.
But that could apply to every case we have. It's all on the property, and that person can sell it tomorrow and move to Arizona. So you could apply those conditions to those as well?
Maybe,
Why would you do that? Because we're doing it to the property, that's what I'm asking.
yeah, so our obligation is to ensure that, for example, in addition to no adverse effect on the neighborhood, that measures shall be taken to minimize the impact of potential nuisances, noise, et cetera, that,
Those are standards.
that there is a plan indicating the manner in which the facility will maintain contact with the neighborhood and so on.
That's part of the plan. in
Right.
In the zoning resolution. Yeah.
Exactly. And so if they move to Arizona, then I think they would be out of compliance with that.
They could still be in contact. Just because they live in Arizona, they could still have contact.
They could, but would they be able to ensure that they had no adverse effect on the neighborhood?
So are you saying it should be a 50-mile radius?
I don't know. I think.
You know, I'm spitballing with you here.
Yeah, well, it's not as easy a question to answer as it might sound from the outside. Obviously, if they're next door, they're close enough. If they're in Arizona, I think they're not. I don't know where the line is.
Well, then
I don't.
How do you draw a line?
Well, I'm drawing the line in this case based on the evidence that I've heard today. For a different house, it might be different. I don't know. I hear what you're saying. There's no principled way to draw that line based on what we know. That might be right, but I think it's something that we should consider. Ensure that there's someone local here to take care of it. Because if they do move to Arizona, or if they get run over by a truck tomorrow, hope you don't.
But there's no requirement in the zoning resolution that it be locally managed that I'm aware of.
No, the requirement is that they meet these conditions, and we're entitled to impose conditions to make sure that they can satisfy these requirements. That seems like an easy way to do it. Have someone here who can make sure these things are satisfied.
Well, they could have a management company.
Yeah, they could. But they can't have a management company in Arizona
Why not?
because they're not going to be able to make sure that these problems are promptly addressed.
I disagree totally with that. I mean, and if you see again, then I want to know, is it 25, 50, 100, or 150 miles?
I don't know. What is it? I mean, what do you think? Is it
No,
3,000?
I have no issue with this.
Yeah.
I have no issue with this. And I do not like conditioning them on they have to do this or they give this back. We don't do that in any other zoning appeal that we pass.
Absolutely we do.
No, we don't. We don't say you can't sell your property and move to Arizona and this is void.
No, but we impose conditions, not just, so for example, maintain the vegetative screen. If your vegetative screen comes down, now your deck that's too close to the property line is out of compliance.
Well, then we can get into crazy weeds, like if the fence section blows down on Thursday, you have to have it up by Friday. Is that?
And we could impose some of those
And
conditions.
that's just beyond, we're getting crazy. I say we're getting
That is
absolutely
crazy. You brought it
crazy.
up, not me.
No, I know, but I'm pointing out the absurdity of it.
Yeah, no, we do impose other conditions, though.
Yeah.
We're telling to impose reasonable conditions.
I don't see anything in here that would apply any additional conditions to.
I understand what you're saying.
Paul, jump in here. Anything to add?
I mean, just going back to the point about, property manager, I mean, if they move out of state and they have a local property manager, I see no reason why that wouldn't.
The last two we had
They were
independent, they had independent property managers.
The last one, I believe, they were self-managing.
But then, I remember one of them had a property manager, we didn't have an issue with that.
Even the other one was self-managing from Georgia.
Yeah, self-managing for Georgia, was that within your mileage?
I wasn't here for that hearing, but we can talk about that one a little later.
All right,
We
let's
will
keep
talk
this,
about
let's
that.
keep this moving. Paul, you got anything else?
No, I think the
John?
biggest thing for me was the fact that there was no opposition.
No.
Where the past cases we've had opposition, and fairly as Jeff points out, that the street is different. This is a road versus a cul-de-sac. We had I forget the one previous to that one. That was also on a
Yeah.
side residential street. So it does have an impact, but I'm in favor.
John?
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'm not going to make a motion because I think nobody else is going to adopt my condition.
Yeah,
So
okay.
you guys go ahead.
John, you with that? You want to move? I can do it if you don't want to, if you don't feel comfortable. Okay. I move that we grant the variance And as reasonings, we list the staff findings as the reason.
And let me
for-
interject, staff did recommend a condition of local ownership or management, right?
Did you?
It's right here
Yeah.
Yeah.
on page 3. Does that change your thinking at all?
No, I don't agree with it, but.
Okay.
And I can count to 5, and I can count
You
to
only got to
3.
count to 3.
I have to count to 3, you know?
I think if the township wanted that to be a condition for these conditional uses, then, they made several rules here
Yes,
that they have to follow.
but
So if they wanted
when
an
they-
additional one, they would have included that.
I agree with you, because when they passed the zoning resolution, they had the option to include local, but they didn't, so I'm questioning why we should impose local,
Right.
okay?
And I
So-
think that's a fair criticism.
Okay,
And that might be a question too. If-
so
if there's-
where is that we were talking about? Show me the line item.
It's in the staff recommendation on page 3.
Correct. Staff recommendation, page 3, section I and V.
Well, this could be an interesting motion then, because I'll make the motion accepting the staff findings except for the staff recommendation regarding local ownership.
And I would ask that we hold on that, and then
We have
either
to-
we open it up and ask staff their reasoning behind that. I'd like to know
Yeah.
the reasoning.
Okay, I'll hold. Tell me what your reasoning was. If you didn't do it, that's fine, whoever did it.
I did not prepare this report for this case.
I can tell you what the reasoning is. It's,
Do I see someone down there? Okay, go ahead, tell us.
So Natalie, our co-op, worked on this one and I assisted her with it. Our reasoning behind this has been based on your discussions from previous Airbnbs. There's been a lot of controversy about the fact that what if something happens and they're not here? In this case, we have an owner that is right next door. And we saw this as an opportunity to put in a new condition in place. And I am also the person that wrote the short-term rental regulations that are in our zoning resolution. So yes, it was something that was missed and probably should have been included when it was approved in 2020. However, we learn from cases as they come, and this is, staff believed that this was a learning opportunity with having an owner that is next door.
Okay.
I
All right.
believe staff is fine with, while they are next door now, that they might move somewhere else in Cincinnati, that maybe it is a radius situation where they're 20 miles or,
I don't know how we apply that. If they get an
And that's-
opportunity to work in St. Louis next week for $500,000 a year for each of them, you know.
and
you
that's
can-
the board's
yeah.
choice.
I think that's more of a case for the zoning board than us. And because the zoning should have
who are
addressed
we?
this when, not Board of
Oh,
Appeals,
the
not
zoning
not the appeals. The zoning should have addressed this when they put the stuff together and not leave it to, oops, you guys figure it out.
Is that a zoning matter or a trustee matter?
No, it's zoning.
It's both.
Both, yeah. So, that said, and,
so wait, before you make the motion, let's count. I would impose staff's conditions. Is anyone else with me?
I don't care what your count is, it's not gonna change my vote one way or the other.
I know it's not
Yeah.
going to change yours, but if these guys say they'd impose staff conditions, then we have 3, just so we know.
Yeah.
I would impose them.
I would.
You would? Just the 2 of us?
John is reviewing.
No?
I would not.
John is reviewing.
John's thinking about it. Okay, just so we know.
Well, if I'm reading this right, it's a requirement that they have local property manager.
That's a request from the staff.
Oh, well, I would go with that,
You would?
yeah.
Okay.
I
So-
feel like you can't manage from across the country easily. I mean, you've got the ability to know what's going on with the security cameras on your phone these days.
But you can't do anything about it if you're not there, right?
Well, you could.
We've already approved others without that. So why is this particular one necessary?
I think we probably shouldn't have without this ones. That's the answer.
And if
In
staff.
any event, I think what I hear, not to take your chairmanship here, but what I hear is 5 votes to approve.
This is not a dictatorship, this is a discussion, okay? That's why we're going back and forth with each other.
Iron fist. I mean, I'm hearing 5 votes to approve, 3 to adopt staff's conditions. Is that right?
And I'm going back to staff statement, as this is a evolving process. They didn't necessarily address it in the past, but that doesn't mean they don't want to address it now.
Yeah,
So
but they're
we are-
forcing us to address their issue.
Yeah, I
And
think
at least 3 of us are ready to.
if this is a problem, then it's something that the trustees will change. But if there's not a problem, then why would we impose it prospectively?
Yeah. Because I will not support that, so if someone else wants to make a motion, and we can count bodies here, someone else needs to make the motion, because I won't support that.
All right, here we go. Mr. Chair, with regards to case 25-2022 BZA, for the reasons in the staff report, I move that we approve the conditional use with staff's recommended conditions.
Second motion.
Will you call the roll?
Mr. Johnson,
No.
Mr. Nye,
Aye.
Mr. Sion,
Aye.
Mr. Halpin,
Aye?
Mr. Shekels.
No, it passes, okay? So they will contact you, and you'll get all the paperwork necessary, and they'll let you know when it's ready. Okay? Thank you. Okay, no, we have to go out. We have to come back out.
I just don't see a problem.
We've gone back and forth on this 2 times. Sometimes I've been told we have to come out of executive session
I
formally.
guess the staff will put that in their language next time.
Yeah, can we have a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
you read the roll?
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Nye,
Aye.
Mr. Sion,
Aye.
Mr. Halpin,
Aye?
Mr. Shekels.
Aye. Okay, will the staff read the report for the next appeal, which is BZA 26?
I'm having a few technical difficulties. Right, oh, there we go, okay. This is case 26-2022 BZA. The applicant is Don Thomas. He's a land leaseholder. His property is at 7150 Ragland, number 23, book 500, page 230, parcel 11. This property is located in the Hermitage Club, for reference. It's zone A residential. The request tonight is the applicant is requesting a variance to allow a new addition with front yard setback of 11 feet 3 inches, where 50 feet is required per Article 3.3C2 of the Anderson Township Resolution. The proposed development, the applicant is proposing the construction of a new addition to be located in the front yard setback of Lot 23 of the Hermitage Club. The applicant is proposing a front yard setback of 11 feet 3 inches, where 50 feet is required. The existing home is non-conforming and currently has a setback of 25 feet. Also, the existing home sits on an angle compared to the drive, where the new addition would have a setback of 25 feet 7 inches to the north, 11 feet 3 inches to the northwest. For the purposes of determining a front yard setback, the 11 foot 3 inches is used. The carport area of the new addition is located in the northwest portion of the addition that would cause the front yard setback to be changed to 11 feet 3 inches. The applicant stated that the structure will copy the historic nature of the home, which includes uplifted gables and continuing the roof line of the porch on the ground level. The addition will include a 4th uplifted gable. The area is heavily wooded with a downward sloping property from the road. History of this property. The property was developed as a single-family residence within the Hermitage Club. The Hermitage Club is a corporation founded around 1920, owning 244 acres of wooded land in Anderson Township. 27 members jointly own the property, and each leases 1 acre as a personal leasehold and residence. The majority of the homes were constructed prior to current Anderson Township zoning regulations and have non-conforming front yard setbacks. The Hermitage Club Architectural Committee and the Board of Directors have approved the proposed addition to the structure at 7150 Ragland, number 23. In April 2022, the Board of Zoning Appeals heard case 2022, where Lot 22 of the Hermitage Club requested a variance for a new single-family house with a front yard setback of 34 feet 9 inches, where 50 feet is required. The new residence would be 18 feet further from the private drive than the previous residence. The variance was granted with 2 conditions. Here we see a map of the property. Here's an aerial. If you can see the orange marking there, that is location of the house within the Hermitage Club. Topography map, you can see the downward sloping terrain from the street to the back of the house, to the back of the property. Here's a photo from the street looking at the area of where the location of the addition is proposed. Another view. Variance findings. To authorized by grant of a special zoning certificate after public hearing, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall make a finding that the proposed variance is appropriate in the location proposed. The finding shall be based upon general considerations set forth in Article 2.12D2B. Staff is of the opinion that the variance would not be substantial, while the front yard setback would become 11 feet 3 inches when it is now 25 feet. The proposed addition will copy the historic nature of the home, which is on a private drive, and neighbors cannot directly view the house. There are only 6 additional homes that this private drive serves past Lot 23. The essential character of the neighborhood would not be altered, and adjoining properties would not suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. The applicant has proposed a design of the new addition to keep in character of the historic nature of the current home. Further, Mr. Robert Cuddy, Vice President of the Hermitage Club, has written a letter of support for the new addition. The variance would not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services. Property owner's predicament could not be feasibly obviated through some method other than a variance. The property is located on a heavily wooded lot, especially to the south and east parts of the lot, with slightly steep grade from the private drive to the proposed location for the addition. The driveway is located to the west. It comes in at an angle from the northwest. There is also a covered porch that surrounds 3 sides of their property to the northwest, southwest, and southeast. The proposed location on the northeast side is the only feasible area to locate an addition without destroying portions of the home and its historic nature. Staff is of the opinion that the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance based on the following. The new addition would be architecturally similar to the existing home. The letter of support from the Hermitage Club Vice President. The existing home is already non-conforming with a front yard setback of 25 feet, whereas 50 feet is required. The current request is for 11 feet 3 inches front yard setback. This setback is to a private drive that serves 6 additional homes. And these are the list of standards to be considered. A property in question will yield a reasonable return, or whether there can be any beneficial use of the property without a variance. The variance is substantial. The essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered, or whether adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. The variance would not adversely affect the delivery of government services. The property owner purchased the property without knowledge of the zoning restrictions. The property owner's predicament can be feasibly obviated through some method other than a variance. The spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. Board.
Any questions of the staff? Okay. Will the appellant or the appellant's representative please come to the podium, speak your name, address, and your affiliation. Okay. Present your appeal.
My name is Don Thomas, and my wife and I are the ones seeking the zoning variance for the property that we own at 7150 Raglan Road, Lot 23 in Anderson. Before I make my presentation, I would just thank you all for your service to our community. As mentioned, the Hermitage Club is a group of 27 stockholders who own approximately 244 acres of land in Anderson Township. We also have a couple parcels in Newtown that are behind Ivy Hills. Each stockholder owns our own home located on this property, and we each have a 99-year lease, which we received for $1. The Hermitage Club is the lesser of our properties, and it maintains the right to approve or disapprove any addition, fence, paint color, or any other changes to the exterior of our leaseholds. Our club bylaws establish an architectural committee that is charged with working with members who wish to make changes. And I would mention that the chair of that architectural committee is a well-known retired architect. They then make a recommendation to the board of directors, who has the final right to approve or disapprove changes. The Hermitage Club Board of Directors approved our proposal on August 30, 2022 in their board meeting, and I closed a letter from our board vice president, Bob Cutting, indicating board approval. I currently serve as the president of the board, and so that's why the letter didn't come from the president of the board. I did not vote on the proposal or left the meeting, actually, and didn't participate in the discussion. Both my wife and I are in our 70s, and we bought our two-story, actually 3 stories if you include the garage, several years ago, because it is next to our oldest daughter and 4 grandchildren. All 4 of our children are concerned about the steps that we walk. Our bedroom's on the 2nd story, our washer and dryer and garage are in the basement. When we bought this house, we agreed with our children to try to set it up so that we would have single-story living if that were necessary. This past year, we added a full bath on the 1st floor as a part of this process. Our house is approximately 100 years old, and from looking at the pictures, it probably was the nicest house in the Hermitage Club when it was built, because originally they were hunting and fishing shacks and summer residences. Originally, it was a large great room with a small kitchen and dining area surrounded by a porch that's wrapped around 3 sides of the house. Parts of this porch have been winterized and used as an entry room, office, dining room, and the kitchen. We are proposing to follow the porch motif on the 4th side of the house and to add a carport and a pantry and a family room that could be easily converted to a bedroom should either of us not be able to do stairs any longer at some point in time. We are also proposing to add about 40 square feet on a 2nd floor, adjoining the 2nd floor bathroom as a primary laundry area. This small addition would have an uplifted gable that matches the other 3 uplifted gables in the house. There is a single lane road that passes our house. As it stands, as was mentioned, our house already violates zoning requirements. I would mention that 3 of the 6 people who live beyond us are board members, and they voted to approve our proposal. Since we live in a heavily wooded area, our house is only visible to one other house. That is a new house under construction that had the variance that you all granted several months ago. We request that you grant us this variance because it will fit with the historic nature of our home, make our home more livable for people who are our age, and will be of no inconvenience or distress to our neighbors. I have one other request, and I may be incorrect in this, but as I understand it, if the variance is granted, it lasts throughout the property life, with the property, but my understanding is we would have a year to commence construction and 2 years to complete it. Last week, we released our contractor because of major disagreements over finances. And so we are beginning the process of finding a new one, and I'm concerned with that, and considering the recent tragedy of the hurricane in Florida, that there may be issues with building materials, getting them in a timely manner. So if you would approve our variance, we're also requesting that we be given 2 years to start and 3 years to complete this project. Thank you.
Okay. Question, 2 years and then an additional year to complete?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Just want to clarify that. Okay. Any questions from the board? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Is there anyone here who would like to speak in support of the appeal? Is there anyone here who'd like to speak in opposition to the appeal? Hearing none, I'd like the motion from the board that we close the public hearing on this case.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We read the roll?
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Cyan?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye. Well, Brian, since you're at the other end of the table, and I like to start, and when I'm running this, to start there and work through everybody, you get to fire it up first today.
All right. Normally, I would be skeptical of a request like this, but given that how long the corporation has been here before the zoning rules, I'm guessing there are several existing non-conforming things in this area. And it's very secluded, and I guess the architectural committee usually are a little stricter in applying rules than other bodies, and they seem to be okay with it, so I guess I'm leaning to yes.
Okay. Jeff?
I would grant the variance. The primary concern in these things for me is almost always the character of the neighborhood. The neighborhood's behind this one. It's a unique neighborhood within the township. Of the 7 factors we're supposed to consider, the only one that weighs against them is that they purchased the property with knowledge of the zoning restrictions. The other ones all either weigh in their favor or kind of don't weigh either way. In a different neighborhood, this would be a pretty substantial variance. In this neighborhood, it's not, and I don't think it'll affect the character of the neighborhood. They couldn't do it on the other side of the house, so they don't really have another way to achieve their goal here. Doesn't affect government services. What did I miss? Yeah, not substantial in context. So I think the spirit and intent of the zoning requirement would be observed. So I would grant the variance. With respect to the 2 years to start, 3 years to complete condition, I don't see any reason we shouldn't grant that request.
Paul?
I'm in favor.
John?
I'm in favor.
And I'm in favor. So I'd like to make a motion regarding case number 26-22, BZA at 7150 Raglan Road, number 23, that we grant the variance based on the staff report, the letter from the Heritage Association dated, others, they're both dated, 2 dates, dated September 1st. There's one of 2021 and one of 2022. Also, the grant is conditional on being substantially compliant with the drawings attached to the variance request, that the owner begin construction within 2 years and complete with an additional year for a 3-year total.
Second the motion.
Will you call the roll?
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Cyan?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye. Okay, will the staff now read the report for BZA 27-2022? We didn't come out we need to come out.
We didn't go into executive
We've done
session,
this
though,
both
right?
ways, and so I'd rather prefer, just so there's no legal challenge. You know how attorneys are, Jeff.
I do.
So motion is out of here.
Motion to come out of executive session if we were in it.
Second.
We call the roll.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Cyan?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye. Okay, we read the staff report for BZA 27-2022.
Case 27, 2022 will be read by our co-op, Brandon.
Case 27, 2022 of the BZA. The applicant is Joseph and Julian Canny, who are the property owners. The property is located at 7711 Stoneley Lane. Book 500, page 212, parcel 338. The zoning is a B residence, and the request is the applicant is requesting a variance for an elevated, partially covered deck, size 15 feet by 18 feet in the rear yard area with a setback of 20 feet, where a 35-foot setback is required per Article 3.5 C2 of the Anderson Township zoning resolution. The proposed development, the applicant is proposing the construction of an elevated, partially covered deck addition to the existing home located in the rear yard. The covered portion of the deck would be 15 by 18 feet. The structure would be constructed out of material that matched the existing single-family home and provides sunlight protection as the rear of the house faces directly west. The applicant stated that during hot summer months, the existing back patio becomes unstable with their 2 young children. Some history on the property. The home was built in 2016 as part of the Hunters Run at Anderson subdivision. In 2015, October, the Board of Zoning Appeals heard case 26, 2015, where 7866 Stoneleigh Lane of the Fox Hollow subdivision, which requested a variance to allow a rear yard setback of 26 feet 7 inches for a 16 by 18 foot addition, which was a 4-season room addition and 2 uncovered decks, where a setback of 35 feet was required. The variance was granted with 2 conditions. In June of 2018, the Board of Zoning Appeals heard case 8 of 2018, where 7723 Stoneleigh Lane of the same subdivision requested a variance to allow a rear yard setback of 24 feet for a 14 by 21 foot addition, where a setback of 35 feet is required. The variance was granted with 2 conditions as well. This is the property map. This is an aerial photo of the property. And this is a topography map. It is pretty flat for the most part. Towards the rear yard, it does slope down a little bit there. The variance findings: to authorize by the grant of special zoning certificate after public hearing, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall make a finding that the proposed variance is appropriate in the location proposed. The finding shall be based upon the general considerations set forth in Article 212D2B. Staff is of the opinion that the variance could be substantial. While currently built at a setback of 35 feet, the addition would bring the house 20 feet from the property line, whereas all the houses except the previously approved variance on Stoneleigh Lane have been constructed near or at the 35-foot setback. The essential character of the neighborhood could be substantially altered, and adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. All the homes on Stoneleigh Lane appear to be in line based on the location of their property lines. The property currently has a concrete patio in the location where the addition would go. By constructing this addition to the rear of the house, it will leave 20 feet between the rear of the existing house and the property line. Planted on the property line is a screen of Norway spruce trees, approximately 10 feet tall, which provide an effective separation between this property and the rear adjoining properties. The rear of the house, where the addition will be, is slightly visible from Stoneleigh Lane, and the property's owner's intent is to match the addition with the existing building materials to fit the character of the neighborhood. The variance would not adversely affect the delivery of government services. The property owner's predicament would not be feasibly obviated through another method other than a variance. Their existing home is already 35 feet from the rear property line. The required rear yard setback, leaving no additional room to build an additional piece to the home in the rear. The spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement may not be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. There are homes on the west side of the street of Hunters Run, all constructed near the 35-foot required setback, and are experiencing the same circumstances. The subdivision to the west, Foxbrook Place, is also zoned B. However, these are larger. While a variance was granted in 2015 for 7866 Stoneley Lane, the rear yard setback was 26 feet 7 inches, and in 2018 for 7723 Stoneley Lane, the rear yard setback was 24 feet. Whereas the rear yard setback being proposed for this case is 20 feet. Staff recommends that the character of the neighborhood be maintained with the existing rear yard setback of 35 feet in the B zoning district on Stoneley Lane. These are the standards to be considered. The property in question will yield a reasonable return, or whether there can be any beneficial use of the property without the variance. The variance is substantial. The essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered, or whether adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. The variance would not adversely affect the delivery of government services. The property owner purchased the property with knowledge of the zoning restrictions. The property owner's predicament can be feasibly obviated through a method other than a variance. The spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance.
Are there any questions from the board? Okay. Will the applicant or the appellant's representative please come to the podium, speak your name, address, and any affiliation to the case?
Hello, good evening. My name is Joe Canny. I'm the property owner at 7711 Stoneley Lane with my wife, Julie. You heard the history of the home. It was built in 2016. We moved in June of 2019 with, at the time, was our one-year-old son. And we quickly realized that the rear of the home, or the backyard of the home, was unbearable with the amount of sunshine that we get. You know, we tried to go the route of purchasing a large oversized umbrella to help combat the sunshine, but we quickly realized that that was not going to be a long-term solution given the amount of sunshine that we get with where our house is located. You know, fast forward to where we are today, 3 years later, we have a son that's 4. I have a daughter that's almost 2 years old. And right now we are basically limited to only playing or having them, when we're outside in the afternoon, play in the front yard or even in our driveway. You know, as I'm sure anyone can attest to, trying to keep track of a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old can be somewhat difficult as we're doing that in the front yard. You know, and we are on a cul-de-sac. We don't see a ton of traffic, but we do still see some traffic coming through, so it's definitely a safety concern and something that we want to make sure that, you know, if we do get this approval, it would help alleviate some of that concern with our kids outside. As I mentioned, the structure would be to provide relief from the sun, a place for entertaining, and overall it would improve the quality of life of you know, living in this home. I'm not originally from Anderson. My wife grew up here. I can say that we love Anderson. We love our neighborhood. We have some of the best neighbors out there. Some of them here you may hear from in a little bit, but you know, we are willing to make the financial investment into our home because this is a place where we want to stay, and this is a home that we see us living in for many, many years. You know, just looking at the staff report, just talking about some of the points there, you know, the character of the neighborhood could be substantially altered, and the adjoining properties could suffer a detriment. I'll just, you know, for one, the design plans have been submitted to our Hunters Run HOA. The design review board has reviewed it and approved it. And as mentioned, the structure would have very limited visibility from the street. And you know, there are a few other homes on the street, as mentioned, 7723, which received the variance in 2018. And you know, I would say it doesn't. There's no detriment to the character of the neighborhood. In fact, I would say it's improved it. You know, there are only a few homes that would have sight of the addition. You know, they mentioned the Foxbrook neighborhood behind us, but there is a large row of spruce trees, you know, 10 to 15 feet high that is a nice barrier between our home and theirs. They are larger lots, so, you know, they definitely have a wider setback. So I don't really see, you know, the detriment that this addition would have on those homes. Yes, there are other homes on the neighborhood that are dealing with the same circumstances. We are located on the north side of the street, but as you move further to the south, those homes receive the benefit of larger trees that weren't torn down during the construction of these neighborhoods, and in fact do get some shade from those trees in the afternoon, whereas our home does not. We get none, in fact. And you know, I'll highlight the predicament would not be feasibly obviated through another method other than a variance, and I think that's kind of where we're at. We've tried other options, and just given the amount of sun that we get in the starting in the beginning of the afternoon all the way through the dinner hour, you know, the umbrella was not a viable option for us long term. So that's why I would request the approval of this variance. I think the quality of life for my family and for my kids would be greatly improved. And that's all I gotta say.
Any questions from the board? No? Thank you. Okay. Before I ask any other to come forward, could the staff check the 2 previous cases in this neighborhood and let us know what the conditions were on those? I'm giving you some time to do that, okay? Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in support of the appeal? Please come to the microphones for your name, address, and your affiliation.
Hello, my name is James Bettner. I live at 7723 Stoneleigh Lane, 2 doors up from the Cannies. Our project was the one that was approved 2 years ago. So that 2018 project for 7723 was our home, and we put that addition on. We were, just to kind of replay what we went through, we moved in 2016, and we lived with the sun and the heat for two years. And it became apparent that, you know, for us to really enjoy our house and our lot, we needed some relief. So that's why we came to the board when we did. And since then, it was right before that board meeting, we had one of the record hot days on Memorial Day weekend, and I think everybody that was on the board realized how hot it was that weekend, and we ended up having to come in after a short amount of time with our whole party. So we're in that room practically every night. We have a shade that comes down and gives us protection. We have children and grandchildren that love spending time in there, because being in the outside air and also having protection from the sun makes the backyard very enjoyable. Joe did allow me to take a look at the materials that he's using. It's very well done, and the space is very well laid out, in my opinion. In addition to this, the property value effect, I know we're all experiencing increased property values over here, but it's been very dramatic, and I think a big part of it for our house and our neighborhood has been this addition that was put into on our house. Also, just wanted to say that Joe and his family are some of the nicest folks that you could ever meet, and we're wholeheartedly behind this project for the Cannies.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay. Anyone else like to speak in support of the appeal? Please come to the podium, say your name, address, and your affiliation.
My name is Jennifer Allred. My address is 7783 Stoneleigh Lane. So I am Joe and Julie's neighbor. I served on the board when Jim and Karen's was approved, so we went through that process. And my husband is actually serving as the board president currently, and so he has seen the plans approved to them to kind of move forward with this variance. I am a realtor. I sell in Anderson quite often and sell all over Cincinnati. This is actually a project that will enhance and improve the neighborhood and not detract from it in any way, shape, or form. As they said, the evening sun really makes the yard kind of unusable during those evening hours. It's very hot. So I live on the west side of the street, and we don't have that evening sun. Ours is the morning. We built a deck, and we debated back and forth for a long time whether we do a variance to put a roof on it for the enjoyment in the morning. And eventually, decided that we were going to hold off on that. But the structure of this that they are proposing is actually quite beneficial to the home, to the neighborhood, and to the aesthetic. So I actually sold the home in 2017, and the previous owners had a semi-permanent pergola structure that was in the backyard. And I will tell you right now, it looked really tacky. And so for me, having a permanent structure that's well taken care of, matches the aesthetic of the home, all of those things actually improves the value and does not decrease from it in any way, shape, or form. I also feel like people have the right to enjoy their property, both inside and out. And at this moment, they can't because of the conditions of the exterior. So my hope is that they will be able to enjoy their outdoor space as well.
Thank you. I have a question. You
Yes.
say the neighborhood association has formally reviewed and approved the plans?
Yes,
Yes.
I was going to say, because my husband talked to me about it. He's
Okay.
out of town. So,
Okay, but it
yes,
has
so-
been gone through a formal process with the
correct,
neighborhood
yes.
association?
Yes,
Okay.
that is part of the process for them to even apply for a variance.
Okay.
So,
All right,
Yep.
thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any questions from the board?
What's your house number again?
7783.
So down. at
So
the-
as you
kinda
come
by
in the
bend.
neighborhood, we are the very first house on the left, and then the street turns. So we are on the very west side.
Okay.
And we did get approval for our deck, if that's what you were looking at.
Trust me, I'm not going to run out there tonight and find out.
No. Any other questions?
I'm not a narc.
Any other questions? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in support? Please come to the podium, speak your name, address, and affiliation.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jason Plumpton. I live at 7724 Stone Lane. It is the house directly across the street from the Cannies. I just wanted to formally say that I wholeheartedly support the variance, mostly from a property value standpoint. I believe the property value would go up significantly with the fact that they would now be able to actually use, and future homeowners would be able to use that backyard space. The only other piece I'll state to avoid being too repetitive is just kind of reinforcing some of the predicament. We have 2 young kids that play with the Cannies, young kids, and unfortunately they're bound to the front yard and close to the street. Allowing this variance would allow them to move to the backyard, stay kind of away from the street, and be covered in a shady area. That's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay. Has the staff had an opportunity to look up the other 2 variances?
We did find conditions from case 8, 2018. First condition, construction shall be started within 1 year of completed and completed within 2 years of the day of decision. Number 2, substantial conformance with the plans dated April 23rd, 2018. And finally, the third condition, that the addition is to remain open permanently and that there will be no other addition added to the rear of the home.
What did they mean by open permanently? Is it a screened-in porch, or is it? We don't know that.
I don't know that.
We don't know
We don't
the
know that.
circumstances of that. Jeff, you've been here for about 4 or 5 decades, haven't you? You remember it?
I'm the newest member of
Okay.
I think. Other than this.
I mean, it sounds familiar in my thought.
Hold on, I've got it
It's
pulled
his
up.
house.
Yeah.
Well,
The blue shirt.
it
you
is
could please
open,
come
it
back
doesn't
up to
have
the-
walls, right? Okay, yeah.
They didn't want glass windows. Okay, thank you. Okay. All right. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in objection? Hearing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second? We read the roll?
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Sion?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye. Well, Brian, you know where I'm coming first.
every house on this street has the same setback right up against the limit. So everybody theoretically knew about this small backyard. Maybe the applicants didn't know how unusable it would be. But I think that it's at the end of the street. It slopes down, so, because I walked this one, and I think because of where it is, that this variance is actually less substantial than the two previous ones. Because I don't think this would block anybody's view compared to the other two, because I was looking at those other two. So I was thinking that this would be less substantial, but I would put a condition to keep the trees or vegetation that's similar in height and density with what's currently there.
Jeff?
When I saw this on paper, I thought, that seems like it's kind of big, but, having visited the street and seen the other houses, it seems much less substantial in context. Again, every neighborhood's a little bit different. The builder didn't do many favors by building it right up to the setback line. I think in context, it's not that substantial. I don't think it's going to, certainly I don't think adjoining properties will suffer a substantial detriment because of it. And I don't think the essential character of the neighborhood will be substantially altered either. I would not be shocked if we started getting a bunch of requests in this neighborhood for similar structures, but, the neighborhood is the neighborhood. Doesn't affect delivery of governmental services, knowledge of zoning restrictions, that one weighs against them. We heard good testimony that there's no other feasible way to obviate their predicament. And I think the spirit and intent of the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. So I would grant it. I think a condition to maintain a vegetative screen in the back, because it is getting, kind of close to that back property line. That seems reasonable to me to impose. Those are my thoughts.
Paul?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I would just question the vegetative screening there, that based on the property line, it's hard to tell whose is what over there. I mean, if they do have something and we want them to maintain that, I'd be okay with that, but they can't obviously maintain vegetation that's not on their property.
John?
I'm good with it.
You need to talk a little less, John.
I try.
I would add the condition, though, we had the other case where they mentioned, no.
The structure
Yeah,
itself that they
we don't want it a
proposed
four-season room.
isn't an enclosed structure.
Yeah.
It's an open structure. There's no, you could go back and modify it to putting it enclosed. Is that what you're going for?
Yeah, I mean, if we had similar conditions on the past.
So we
one-
just say that it's going to conform with the drawings they submitted.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, and Steve, with the absence of Steve this evening, I'll make another motion. In the case of BZA 27-2022, 71 Stoneleigh Lane, we'd like to approve that variance, and there'll be conditions, and citing the staff findings as the reason for approval. The conditions are that the vegetation screening that's on their current property be replaced on a one-by-one basis in the event that any of them die, okay, with a similar thing. Right now they're Norwood spruce, but anything else similar, one for one, okay? I'd also reference that the neighborhood association gave formal approval to this, that the construction should begin within 1 year and completed with 2, and the construction be in substantial compliance to the plans submitted dated 6 September 22 by Caney residents be cited as well, and it is an open structure, not an enclosed structure.
Completed, started with one.
Yeah, started one, completed two.
Before we get a second on that, I'd like to go back and you referred to staff opinion. Staff opinion in this is
Oh, and the staff opinion is
contrary
no.
to.
So in counter to staff opinion, the motion will read. I see you smirking.
Second.
Okay, we call the roll?
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Cyan?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye, it is approved. They will contact them, and they'll get the paperwork to you as appropriate, okay? And now we move on. We got to come out. Jeff, move to come us up.
Move to come out of executive session.
Second.
Roll, please.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Cyan?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye. One note, staff, there's no cheat sheets next month.
Thanks for coming.
Sounds like they have choice.
Okay. All right, we're going to go into journalization then? Sure. Does anybody need a quick break or not?
I'm good.
Okay, let's keep right on rolling.
Someone else feel like they're in Jurassic Park?
Yeah.
Is that what that is? Is the T-Rex coming? I was hoping for the T-Rex.
We need to adjourn, just run out the door.
I know, Paul's gonna make a separate motion. Motion to get away from the T-Rex. Hope this is all on YouTube.
What are we waiting on?
They're
Journalization,
getting the
tech issues.
Oh,
documents together.
So impatient.
just checking.
You got somewhere to be?
No, no, only home. I don't think I'll eat anything when I get home either. But we'll see.
All right, 8030 Ackley Road.
This is the one with the wisteria and
Two
trellis?
different, yes.
Yeah, okay.
You can scroll up.
Again, that is scrolling down, but go
No,
ahead.
I'm scrolling up. Which way would you go from here to there? Which way is that?
But the camera is panning down. The document is staying in the same place, and you are looking farther down.
I think it's preference, really.
You stay out of this.
Scroll some way.
I'm good with everything we've
Yeah,
said.
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody else okay? This has been reviewed by the staff attorneys, right? That's, yeah. Okay, scroll.
Scroll down.
I'm sorry, Paul.
No, I'm game. I'm going to convince you that this way's up at some point in your life.
You are not. I'm good with all this.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, with respect to case 20-2022 BZA, I move that we approve and journalize our decision.
Second motion.
Read the roll.
Mr. Johnson,
Abstain.
Mr. Nye,
Aye.
Mr. Cyan,
Aye.
Mr. Halpin,
Aye.
Mr. Shekels.
Aye. Well done. No cheat sheet. Yes, change the dates. Okay, let's move on to the next case.
Okay, so 21 is one that neither Brian nor I heard
Okay,
because I don't know where, and Scott was here. Scott's
were you up or down?
I was in
Out.
quarantine. In the basement, so where's that? I don't know.
So you could still correct this grammatically, okay? Well, let's just still.
Well, I just
Yeah.
want to say that I've reviewed the video and I've heard all the debate, but I think I'm not going to vote on this.
Okay.
I intend to abstain.
All right. Okay. Yeah, we have, us three were here.
So there's a quorum to
Quorum.
vote.
Yes, and we don't need your vote, in a nice kind of way, of course.
Well, unless you three are unanimous,
Yeah.
it fails. for
Right,
lack of
okay.
majority.
So we'll keep going. Let's go do the scroll through. Oops, slow down. I can't read that fast. Okay, I'm good with that. Okay, you can scroll.
These should be, that's from the staff report from last time, I presume. It's nothing new in this language right here. Looks like it. So we can scroll down, is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, I just want to make sure there's no typos. There's 8 glaring. Okay, go ahead.
Was this the property in the cul-de-sac?
Airbnb, yes.
Yes.
And the people moved to Atlanta, was it?
Yes, they had their kid up here at the hospital, Children's Hospital, then relocated when he passed away. Okay, scroll to the conditions. Front plan, that's, yeah, that's right. Number 2 is right. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion?
In regards to case number 21-2022 BZA, a motion that we approve and journalize.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Johnson?
Abstain.
Mr. Nye?
Abstain.
Mr. Cyan?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye. Okay. Scroll.
The issue is, and we'll pause on this one, I follow your issue, is that 2 abstains, John voted nay during the actual vote, you and I voted yea. So if he stuck with his vote, it would not have passed.
But that vote was a straw vote. This is the official vote.
No.
No, no.
No. No.
Because I did that same thing once and voted by mistake one way.
Straw polls don't count.
Everybody laughed and pointed their finger at me, but they still counted. I'm trying to figure out what you were going for. Okay, go ahead, let's see. Yeah, straw vote, and regular.
There's a question in my mind too, but since it passed 3, I was like, I'm done with it. Let's move on.
Move on.
Okay. Yes, go ahead and scroll. All right. All right. Go quiet. Scroll.
So these are all
Compliant.
Airbnb
Yep,
types.
scroll. Yep. We're going to be dealing with these every month now on out.
You might be right.
Or have a local property manager. That's,
Locally owned or have a local property manager.
they don't have to locally manage it themselves.
Yeah, that's
They
what I
can
said.
hire a local,
Yeah,
That was staff recommendation.
yeah, okay.
that's what I said.
But
right?
I
Wasn't
want to
it?
know what the definition of, we'll do this after the meeting, because I'd like to know
Do you-
what the definition of local is.
Do you want me to
You're an
bring my
attorney,
Webster's
we're-
third?
Yeah.
The worst dictionary ever.
Black's dictionary.
I'm good with this.
Mr. Chair, with respect to case 25, I move we approve and journalize our decision.
Second the motion.
Mr.
You can
Johnson?
pick it up.
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Cyan?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye. Is there a motion to, we ready, is that it? All business we have?
2 more.
What, you don't have it?
2 more.
You have no more? 2 more? Oh, that's right, yeah, we have the ones that were added.
You were here for
Yeah.
these.
Yeah, I was here. I keep thinking, we've done 4 cases so far, we gotta be done. All right, let's scroll up this.
I don't even remember why I was against it.
Okay. You can move up. subdivision.
He's reading the document, he wants to move up even though
Okay. And conditions were, okay, 2 and 3. Okay, I'm good. Anyway, so you got a motion?
Looks good to me. Mr. Chair, with respect to case 26, I move we approve and journalize our decision.
Second the motion.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Cyan?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye.
Right.
I can sign it now. You got this one finished. The ones you got finished, I'll sign. Okay. Who's our secretary? You are, who is the secretary?
No.
It's
not
Steve.
me.
I'm chairman. Is it Steve? Yes, it was Steve. So do we have to hold this for his signature? Yeah, we just hold this for his signature. And tell him to come up and sign these. Do we have to, or can he just, I'm just asking, is it a point of law, or is it a point of order, or?
I think it's a point of order that you journalized it tonight.
Okay, then, since John, you're sitting next to me, you'll be the interim secretary, so just
Should we
change
vote
the
on that?
secretary to-
Mr. Chairman, I move to appoint John Halpin interim secretary for tonight.
Second.
Do you want to call the roll on that?
I'm never gonna get home to eat.
You gotta vote, we got a motion, you gotta vote. Okay,
Call the roll.
call the roll.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Cyan?
Nay.
Mr. Halpin?
Okay.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye. They just changed the signature block line on those.
I was trying to vote in your favor there.
Show them the one way that I've already signed. Just change the secretary's name.
It doesn't say a name, it just says secretary. You don't have to change anything.
Oh, just the secretary, well, good.
Yeah, no, you don't have to change anything, sorry.
Okay,
I did
well,
that.
yeah, it doesn't list anybody. So you're secretary. We already voted him secretary for this evening, so it's good.
I've been secretary
I
before.
just want to make sure we didn't screw up a point of order, you know? Okay, that one's good. And that one's good. Though you don't get paid extra for this.
I know. A bummer. You'd think my signature would have value.
Okay, we got Stoneway up on the screen here. Okay,
That's Stone Lee or Stone Lay?
Stoneway, I don't, now this says the variance is not substantial, but didn't the staff report say it was?
I didn't think it was.
What did the staff report say on this one? Was it
It is. Could
substantial
be.
or not?
It would be not substantial here.
Yeah, we decided.
Okay. Okay, all right, okay, thanks. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, scroll up. Okay. Yep, all right.
Boy, you read fast.
He's skimming.
Let's see, vegetative.
So number 2, we're referring to HOA there, neighborhood group.
Yeah, homeowners association.
Yeah, I prefer we use homeowners.
Change neighborhood to put homeowners, neighborhood group to homeowners association. Neighborhood homeowners association, yeah. Okay, I'm good with that. Is everybody else good with it? You have a motion?
Case number,
Mr. Chair, with respect to case 27, I move that we approve and journalize our decision.
second.
Please read the roll.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Sion?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
No, we got one more. We already did approve the minutes. We approved those at the beginning. So
We did,
I-
yeah.
So can I have a motion to dismiss before she comes up with another
You can
reason to
dismiss this by
stay?
unanimous consent.
I already motion to adjourn. Got a
Bang
second?
that gavel.
Bang that
Everybody-
hammer.
I didn't hear a motion. Did we get a motion, a vote to dismiss? We need to sign for you. Yeah, okay, I can do that after the
I don't have to be
fact.
there for that.
No, but
Vote
we
of
still
John.
need to dismiss. Motion to dismiss?
Second.
Call the roll.
I don't think we need the roll for that. Do we?
Do we? I don't know. Just do it.
Aye.
Some attorney will
Mr.
tell us.
Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Sion?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye. Everybody's. Everybody stop and
That's the
look up.
updated 27.
They fall
The
to
ones
bottom of your
you
document.
have are
Look
not
up.
the updated